Structure.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. Look, I rise to sum up in this debate on the Copyright Amendment, Disabilities Access and Other Measures Bill 2017. I want to acknowledge the cooperation of the opposition, and particularly the acting shadow spokesperson for communications, the member for Isaacs, and indeed the crossbench in facilitating the passage of this legislation, as I'm advised, a non-controversial bill. Let me just take a moment to address a couple of the comments made by the member for Chifley, who focused his observations on one particular feature of the bill before the House this evening, which is the fact that there was, in the exposure draft of this bill, provisions dealing with a proposed safe harbour regime, and those provisions have been removed from the bill as it stands before the House this evening. The member for Chifley has accurately identified that that is what has occurred, and he has wasted no time in attributing motives to the government's decision to do that. Let me enlighten the House as to why the government's done that. It's perfectly straightforward. We have decided to take the time to conduct additional consultation, Mr Deputy Speaker, and further consider feedback from stakeholders on this important issue. I want to make it very clear that we're not talking about holding a further review or a further inquiry, as the member for Chifley sought to suggest, but what we are going to do is further consider feedback from stakeholders on this issue. This is a complicated issue, Mr Deputy Speaker. This is a complicated issue. The member for Chifley chuckles to himself in some kind of attempt to indicate his view of what the government's done. But I say this. When the member for Chifley was waxing lyrical at the dispatch box, did he move an amendment? He did not. He did not. He did not offer a solution. He did not offer a way forward. He was content to criticise. He was content to criticise, Mr Deputy Speaker. But I do want to make it clear that what the government has decided to do in relation to that particular issue is take the time to further consult, to further engage with stakeholders, to further consider their feedback, and at the same time to proceed with the important measures in this bill. And let me remind the House what those important measures address, because the Copyright Amendment, Disability Access and Other Measures Bill 2017 is an important step in modernising Australia's Copyright Act. The bill will simplify and update the provisions of the Copyright Act relating to the education, libraries and archives sectors, and also the disability sector, and will provide greater flexibility in dealing with content in these sectors. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, the bill before the House this evening is an important further step in improving the workability of the Copyright Act. The provisions of the bill follow detailed consultation with a wide range of stakeholders. Many of these provisions were developed cooperatively in conjunction with stakeholders, such as, for example, the changes to the Educational Statutory Licence Scheme. I do want to thank all of those who have been involved in constructively contributing to the development of the bill. This is an encouraging example, Mr Deputy Speaker, of a range of different copyright stakeholders with different interests coming together to support important reforms. And so this is a bill which makes a constructive and positive difference to the copyright regime in Australia and responds to the needs identified by a number of stakeholders in the education sector, the library sector, the archive sector and the disability sector. Mr Deputy Speaker, I commend the bill to the House.
I thank the Minister for Urban Infrastructure. The question is that this bill be now read a second time. Being no further speakers, I'll put the question. All those of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to amend the Copyright Act 1968 and for related purposes.
Minister. Is leave granted? For the third reading to be moved immediately. Leave is granted. Minister.
I move that this bill be now read a third time.
I will now put the question. All those of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to amend the Copyright Act 1968 and for related purposes. Government
Clerk.
business, order of the day number 7.